Hey everybody, welcome to week 11 of the class. Congrats on making it to the other side of test 2. By now you're just about pros at everything. I do want you to keep in mind that the due date for your concert report is coming up in a couple of weeks. So if you haven't looked at that or thought about it, now's the time to start thinking about it and making your plans, if not even starting work on it. So just put that out there. But at this point, you'll have test 3 at the very end. So we're in good shape. You are cranking through. So this coming week is on progressive rock. So as you know, we've been watching the, fragmentation, you would call it, of rock. After the 60s and everything. So we had psychedelic rock, hard rock and heavy metal. We had country rock, jazz rock, all of these different things happening. And this week is progressive rock. Progressive rock, which is sometimes referred to as art rock, is another fragmentation, but it comes from an interesting place, which is that what you tend to have in these situations is musicians that are very often classically trained. They can read and write music, and like I mentioned in a previous video, that's pretty much an anomaly in the rock world. But in this case, you have some pretty highly skilled musicians that maybe grew up studying, even went to college studying classical music or doing whatever. Traditionally, the ways that they've learned, you'll find this to be a very keyboard heavy genre, and but then they're also, excited by the sounds of what they're hearing coming out of rock and roll, and also excited by the possibilities of blending these. And I'm sure also encouraged by the possibility of bigger audiences, ways to meet more people, if you know what I mean, and all that sort of stuff. So this is another way into the rock world that continues to fragment. And it really continues through still to this day. So again, I don't know, if you're asked a question on a thing about, is there progressive rock still being made? There is. And I'll tell you now, though, I'll just say this out here. If I say, give me an example of a current band, maybe it's okay to mention Dream Theater. They're kind of current, but they've been around a long time. I actually would want you to even go more recent than that, which may take a little bit of work and may take a little digging. It is a very specific style. I will also say that this isn't the genre for everybody. Not everybody likes this stuff, especially some of the stuff that you're going to hear. Now, you may find bands that you like. There are bands that are easier to listen to than others, say Pink Floyd or something like that. But it's not everybody's cup of tea. Some of you will get that in a couple of weeks when we learn about punk rock, because it just does not appeal to certain people. And then when we get into speed metal and all of that, that'll be the same thing. And that's okay. The idea is to learn. The idea is to grow. I never expect that everyone's going to walk out of this class liking everything that they hear. My hope is always that you'll come out liking maybe a new band or artist or new style that you'd either didn't know about or you never really gave the time of day. And I will say also that if you're active in your music listening, your tastes can change and your tastes will change. There are bands that I used to not like that I like now. I also listen to a lot of classical music personally. That's kind of more in the world of the music that I make. And so there are composers that I did not like when I was 20 or 25 that I do like now. There are some that I still don't like, and I don't know that I ever will, and that's okay. But I'm always willing to give things an option and to keep things open and to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to give it a try. I kind of try to be that with food too. I don't try to shut myself off. I don't know that I'll ever like mayonnaise, but I don't know. Maybe that one's just closed. But there are things that I try to be open to, that my general rule, unless it's really crazy disgusting, is that I'll try any kind of food once and give it a fair shot. For example, I'll just throw this out there. If you have never tried huitlacoche, and you're like, what did he just say? Go look it up, check it out. It's a fungus that grows on corn, but it's really good. if you're open to adventuresome tastes. So anyways, something just to throw out as a little extra thing. Keep your palate open, keep your ears open. That's the whole point of that. And that really kind of leads into this. Now, progressive rock is basically where you have rock music that is influenced by other influences, classical influences or experimental influences or things like that. Now, the author actually breaks this down in a good way. I've put it in the module. It's also in the book, and I want you to be mindful of it because it's going to relate to an assignment for this week that you're going to be asked. So she breaks it down into some little subcategories to make it a little more understandable. So the first one is where you have rock music that's influenced by classical instrumentation. Now, this doesn't mean like using strings like they do in, say, Stand By Me or something like that, but it means like maybe influenced like by an actual orchestra. So one of the great examples of that would be Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues. And if you've never really listened to it, Nights in White Satin, listen all the way to the end. Because it starts off kind of orchestrally, it goes into a pretty straight ahead song, but then it ends more experimentally. And in my classes, in my face-to-face classes, I would always make a point of playing to the end because it all of a sudden it like takes this very almost theatrical, filmic kind of approach. So you have that. You have progressive rock styles that are based on classical forms. So form is something I don't really get a whole lot into this class because most pop music follows the same form. If you ever remember studying poetry and all that stuff, you learn about the form of a poem. And most rock songs follow a few basic forms. So you have a verse, which is the part that tells the story, the chorus, which is the main idea of the song. You may have a bridge, which throws in a different perspective on the song. And those are really the three big components. And you may get a solo here or there, different things. It's very common. A very basic form would be like verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, which I think Nirvana even titled a song that. And that's like sort of the simplest thing. You can have songs that are just like verse, 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 verse. Some of those great country story songs that just tell a story all the way through or that. But in the classical music, you have other kinds of forms. And so what you have is rock musicians that are saying, hey, let's take some of the forms that are used in classical music and let's bring those in and see what we can do with those. And there you'll get bands like Genesis does that. Genesis also fits the first category, probably more the first category, at least in the beginning. Yes would be a great example of a band that would incorporate classical forms into rock music. Emerson, Lake and Palmer as well, who actually made full-on like rock variations of classical songs like Fanfare for the Common Man or Pictures at an Exhibition. And then you have progressive rock, where you have rock music influenced by avant-garde trends. Avant-garde is a military term. It means the advanced guard. It's really who you don't want to be in if you're in the military because you're out on the very front lines. But in the arts world, avant-garde means those that are out on that cutting edge. They're pushing the boundaries, going in new directions. You may even know the term now. We use the term bleeding edge, which is farther than cutting edge. You'll find that in marketing and business and things. But so cutting edge. And so what you had with that was artists that were like hearing the influence of experimental composers, art music composers, electronic music composers like Edgar Varese with his poem Electronique. And they're like, wow, how do we incorporate this in? And a great example of that early on is Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd in the beginning was Syd Barrett. If you listen to their early stuff, they came out of a blues tradition, became psychedelic very quickly, which ended up being Syd Barrett's undoing. And there's great songs. Their song Bike, I just love. It's one of my favorite songs of early Pink Floyd. And if you really want to get psychedelic, you can go to Pipers at the whole album of Pipers at the Gates of Dawn. Just really get into all the craziness that's in there. But then they started to change more as Syd Barrett moved out of the picture. As Roger Waters came in, became more of a dominant creative force. They started to incorporate all sorts of sound elements, what we would call musique concrète, using found sound elements. A perfect example is, think of the opening of Money, where you have the sounds of money and cash registers and things. But you'll hear it all throughout Pink Floyd's music. If you've never thought about it before, when songs will fade out into radio sounds, and you think about The Wall and all these different things, that's a very Pink Floyd thing to do. And so those are the main ways of the main genres. And then you have artists that they're influenced by hard rock. Sort of their roots are in hard rock. But they're trying to push the envelope, and there you have people like Frank Zappa. Rush is a great example of that. So when you get asked in an assignment this week about the main progressive rocks, those are subgenres of progressive rock. Those are the ones that I want. The chapter does also end with glitter rock, and with glitter rock is where you'll find and this is sometimes referred to as glam rock, which is different than the hair bands that came later. With glam or glitter rock, this is where you'll get people like T-Rex. You'll get, I'm totally blanking on the band with Brian Ferry and Brian Eno. Roxy Music, there we go. Thank you. Even early Elton John. And of course, you get into David Bowie and Queen, who are really the main ones that are in that. And Queen, as you all know, it's interesting. I mean, a big resurgence with Queen that happened after Freddie died, and certainly through Wayne's World, and then again with the Bohemian Rhapsody movie and all of that. But really, the band that we haven't really learned about the Beatles yet. Oh no, we did in this class. Sorry, boy. I'm teaching 2 classes right now, so that was a mistake, right? So when it comes to the Beatles and what they did, probably the only band really that I would think would rival the Beatles, at least in terms of the variety of output that they did, is Queen. If you go back and listen to their albums all the way through, certainly by the time you get to Night at the Opera and Day at the Races, the variety that you'll hear that's in there, certainly pushing the boundaries of music and what it could do. So that is it. It's a good week. A lot of great music in there. There's a lot of listening and viewing. I suggest that you take it all in. Learn what you can. You know the drill by now. Watch your deadlines. Do all the work that you need to do. Be thinking about that concert report. You are welcome to turn it in early. So if you want to get that done next week, the load will be a little lighter in terms of the material. And I do that on purpose to help with that, with the concert report. But be thinking about that. I think that's it. So have a great week, and we'll talk soon. Bye.